back to another exciting, amazing episode of the Arcane Archive presents Cautionary Chronicles. Oh yes, we have another astounding round of tales and stories to tell you today, my friends. Sure to get your goat wet. That's a saying that they say, right? It's like you can get your goat wet or to wet your appetite. That's kind of what I was going for.
That's the second one.
Well, I
sure.
was looking
The
to kind of
first
combine the
one-
two, but as soon as it kind of came out of my mouth, I kind of bailed out because I was like, this is not going the way I initially thought that I wanted it to. But that's okay, because like many things in life, as much as these stories here, that will happen to you, audience. See how I turned that around right there for a nice, good lesson? You can take that one to the bank. As always, we're so happy that you guys have tuned in. Please be sure to like and comment on the video. It helps us out immensely. Let us know, again, some of your thoughts about these tales that we'll be telling, as well as maybe even just certain tales of your own that you have. Subscribe and share the channel if you haven't already. It's already immensely helpful to kind of get us out there. We kind of usually rely solely on kind of word of mouth slash, help with kind of the community and you guys to kind of get around. And again, helps us out immensely, and we're so very thankful and appreciative of that. But with all that, the house cleaning kind of out the way, let's go ahead and just jump right into today's episode. Samuel, if you would like to please take us away first on our first story.
Sure. You said we'd start with lighthearted, right?
Yeah, the player character made a character whose only trait was being well endowed.
Now, I don't know if you've ever made a well-endowed character. I have not.
At
least not willingly.
It depends on what you refer to as well endowed,
Good shoulders. No.
Hey.
So I have two different
Very
campaigns.
important context.
I'm in one I DM every Sunday, and one I play in every Friday. The Sunday group rarely has any major issues, and is ran closer to my own preferences, being fairly role-play and character-focused, having a decently cohesive story with plenty of room for the usual RPG hijinks. Friday, on the other hand, is a little more loose overall. Less of a focus on the rules, less consistent characterization and storytelling, and more so just pure chaos and jokes. Most of the time, it's just wacky and manic fun that doesn't take much prep from the DM, but is still D&D. However, this format may indirectly cause a fair few problems, mainly from the players. The problem player in this story, I'll call Fighter. Over a year of this campaign with several one-shots in between, it doesn't seem like Fighter has any interest in playing the game at all. Not a problem. It's not going to be for everyone, except that they always show up as if they do want to play the game, but never make any effort of learning the game or the rules. And it's at the point where other players need to walk them through making any check or even remind them which dice is a d20. Fine for a beginner, but just a little irritating after a year of play.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see where OP's coming from with that. Like, that is right off the bat, it is a thing where, as we kind of always say here, like, why are you here then?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it could be the thing, the whole FOMO effect, but or him
You have
wanting
to show up to this. So.
well, but him wanting to like hang out with friends and stuff, right? Like, I believe I kind of touched a little bit on that on the first campaign. The first full campaign I ever played in, where it was like, we had a lot of people show up, but they wouldn't really be as engaged in the game. They'd be talking with each other or two other people or whatever, and they wouldn't really know a lot about the game, even after we've been playing for like months at that point, like their own character. And it was like, I understand, like, you're here to hang out, but this was a day we deliberately designated for this activity, so this is what we're trying to do. And so it's kind of not only disrespectful to the GM who's putting in all this work, but to your fellow players as well, who are also maybe here to do this activity. Also, just a quick aside for you guys, both me and Sammy are feeling a little bit under the weather at the moment, so our voices might be a little bit lower or a little less
that noticeable, huh?
energetic. Well, just to put it out there in case it may have come across to anybody, just as a heads up for all you guys, just to disclaimer. But other than that, Sammy, please do continue. Apologies.
No, it's all good. I didn't know if I sounded like shit or not.
Oh, no, it's fine. I just wanted to clarify just in case for anybody who might be wondering.
Yeah. This wasn't as terrible back when the campaign was following the lost mind of... Is it Phandalin or Phandelver? Is this
The Lost Mines of Phandelver is what the module
Phandelver.
is called, but there's the town
There's
of
town of
Phandalin, but
Phandalin.
there's like the
Okay.
mines of Phandelver, I
I never
guess.
knew if Phandalin was spelled like this, but pronounced Phandalin for some fucking reason.
No. It's spelled like Phandelin, I believe. So
Okay,
it's like
yeah.
it's literally just Lin
Oh,
instead
okay.
of Ver,
Delver.
basically. Yeah.
Okay. With everyone still getting the grasp of the game and the DM not taking much interest in the story, but it all started to seem ignorant when the DM moved into his own story, which he genuinely seemed really excited to get into and share his more pirate-based nautical story. While fighter would simply play games on their phone throughout each session and would need to be walked through each of their turns. A reminder that we had confronted Fighter on this, trying to compromise us to not slow down the flow of the game and ensuring that they wanted to play, which they did. And this is in a game between friends, in a group I'm more of a newcomer to, so kicking them out wasn't really an option without causing drama. But the major issue with Fighter comes from the characters they brought to the table. Their first was a fairy sorcerer, I think, who was as murder hobo as they come, murdering villagers on sight and quickly being mobbed and killed in return. Not too bad given the overall tone of the campaign, but a bit careless and possibly inconsiderate in some circumstances. But the issues ran a bit deeper with the next two. That's a pretty bad
Yeah, I was gonna
choice.
say I like
Like, I don't want to be that guy, but like, if you get killed in the street for trying to, maybe break someone out of jail or something like that, that's one thing. But murdering random people and then getting mobbed to death in the street,
I was gonna
that's
say
that's not
I
really playing the game.
for me, I don't like that. Like, I'll even just say like a little bit of my own experience. Like, actually, I told you before, like we're one
Oh,
group I'm a part of just started a brand new campaign
yeah.
yesterday, and one unfortunate kind of moment that happened in the campaign was like we're essentially kind of like all like dragons, but we're hidden dragons at the moment. Like, we're young, we aren't able to like access like our full power or anything yet. But as the story progresses, we might become like more able to access like our full draconic forms and powers. But until then, we're still kind of just like, we're level 3, we're regular characters. But the current climate like of like the world is like dragons are like hunted, like they're like doggedly hunted. If anything or anybody knows anything about like a real dragon, like we have like a 1 million gold or 1 billion gold bounty or something like that. And like during the fight, or a fight that we had, when we were kind of having a bit of a pirate fight, my character tried to jump across the boats but rolled really low, and so ended up kind of falling below deck. But I still had the ability to hover, I could fly and float. And so I used that to, instead of like falling into the water, to like propel myself and make it seem like I was like flying through like the porthole cover instead, like on the side of the ship, because I'm also a gnome, so I'm a small creature, so I could just like slip right through. Um, but after the fight was over, we have like other people on board our ship that we were transporting, and the GM was trying to rule that they somehow saw that I flew somehow, and were able to put together that I was a dragon, and like wanted basically to like murder them. So like one of our other players went down and I guess murdered this whole family, because it was just like, oh, if we don't do that, they'll turn us in, even though it was like that doesn't make any sense. There's
There's no
there's
reason for
no
that.
way that they would know. Like, I didn't look like a dragon. There's way other things that can fly in this world besides just dragons. Like, I was literally flying forward. Like, I had jumped off the deck. Also, they were below deck. I don't understand how they could see. He's like, oh well, we have cannon openings or whatever down there, and like it's like, but none of the cannons are down there. All the cannons are on the top deck. So why would those be open? How could they even see it? Why would they? They'd be cowering currently. We're fighting pirates. Like, it was just a whole thing that like, definitely uh threw a bit of the session a little bit, like kind of ground it to a halt for a bit. But it's like stuff like that, it definitely like it's like, why do that? Like,
Yeah, that's a little strange.
like I just accepted it because it's like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm not like
You're like, I'm not gonna argue, but this
I
is
mean,
also
well, I
really
mean,
bad.
I was arguing about it, but I was like, but they basically like, well, it already happened, and so I'm like, okay, I'm not okay, fine, whatever. Like, but it's difficult for me to be able to reckon. Like, my character would never just do that. He's not just gonna murder an innocent family for no reason, because there wasn't any really. There's no way that they would have known, and there are so many other reasons for why they wouldn't have told anybody rather than they would have. Like, but it's just like for things like that, my mind just kind of comes up. Same thing here for any moto or sorry, hobo murdery kind of things. It's just like Why do you want to do that? Like, why make that a thing? Like, what is the purpose or make like it's just fun? Why don't you just go play a video game then? Just go play Skyrim or Baldur's Gate or any Souls game or what like what why are you trying to just murder everything in the game or like I don't know. It just always is
Well,
something that just
yeah,
sits
go play something that isn't just let's murder.
or do that. Like if that's what you want to experience for whatever reason, it's like you don't have any good reason to do this. This isn't an interesting story beat. You're not like implementing maybe a unique kind of character trait where you're just like, yeah, I have no conscience or care for people or things or whatever. Like nothing. You're just a psychopath, is what you're saying. Like that's not a really like even as an evil character, like that's not really that interesting. Like,
No.
there's not much nuance to that. Like, a lot of people will be like, well, I mean, but Joker is like a psychopath, and he's like one of the best written, characters in fiction and history. It's like, okay, here's the thing. The
He's also
Joker,
written well, like that.
yeah, the Joker is a really well written character, but he has a lot more motivations than just simply murder hoboing everything. It looks like that at first because that's kind of the intention. It's supposed to look like, oh, he's just a crazy, insane, psychotic, whatever.
Yeah.
But the whole point of like they showcased a number of issues in comics where they showcase the nuance and the subtext or the other part and the other more deeper side to the Joker's psychosis and mentality, beliefs, and his actions and all that other stuff. Like he's not just killing because he kills, actually. Even though he says that sometimes, he's just like, yeah, it's fun. It's fun. But it's fun
Yeah.
exactly because he believes that it's like this doesn't matter. All this stuff that people try to put all this value on, this whatever, like it doesn't really matter like that. It's all just a joke. It's all just a game. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. But I bet you $1,000 that this person here isn't necessarily trying to have any actual like in-depth nuance to his character or to his
No.
choices about just murdering everything around him. He's just like, do, I want to do that. I want to do this. I just want to do that. I just want to do this. It's like that's not how the just goodness. Sorry, go ahead, please continue.
You're good, man. Um, let's see. Um,
But the issue ran deeper with the next two, I think was where we left off.
yeah. Following the sorcerer was the
Was the
fighter's
fighter's
next
next
character.
character. It's
Yeah,
it's a little weird how he said that, yeah.
a half elven warlock who is a runaway royal. A pretty nice setup, and this character didn't do anything too terrible. However, it was the backstory NPCs that were the problem here. The character's mother was quite confidently described as a dommy mommy milf dominating queen. I feel like there's some what is it when you repeat something unnecessarily?
Redundant.
Yeah. Welcome to the Department of Redundancy department. That's
it
there's a little bit of
it was a
redundancy
bit of
here.
a redundant sentence where because you
Yeah.
already call her a dommy mommy, you don't necessarily have to say a MILF dominating queen. But
Yeah.
I guess
Actually
maybe
four of
that
those
maybe
words
maybe he
just all
did
mean
that
the
to
same thing.
maybe he did that to emphasize the fact that that's maybe how she was presented, where he's just like
Oh,
he
sure.
specifically like she's a dommy mommy milf dominating queen. It's like
Yeah.
okay, I mean you already called her a dommy mommy, so milf dominating is the same thing. So I guess I guess he could have done it for emphasis either way.
Sure, it also makes me want to throw up slightly, but here we are. I'm paraphrasing, but it was along those lines.
Okay.
Another character who made an appearance in the fighter's backstory was a bard NPC who was a quote unquote Mexican named Felipe.
This is in the
Everyone at
Forgotten
this
Realms, by the way.
Yeah, everyone at this table is white.
Yep.
Then worst of all was the fighter's third character, their tiefling fighter named Felina Cannibal
Hannibal
Gato.
Gatto.
Yes, her middle name was Cannibal, and her first and last names were just Cat. No problem. Maybe a bit uninspired. Oh, it really is.
He seems to have a bit of a thing for
Yeah,
like Mexican or
that's actually
Hispanic
kind of yeah, that's weird. But
kind of
fantasy names can
thing.
be hard, and a cannibal character in a campaign that allows more dubious evil actions to be taken could be interesting. But that was not the
No,
direction Fighter took Felina. If that's the kind of
no.
game they played, that's the kind of game they play. He's acknowledging that it could not necessarily be terrible, which is fine. Your table is dog shit. by all accounts. So continue with your day. Um, but let's see. Instead, the entire gimmick of Felina was having big boobs, just constant references to her chest puppies. I don't.
Her
Also, it's sweater.
chesticles.
It's sweater puppies, not chest
Yeah,
puppies.
yeah. I
Fucking
think
get your
it's
fucking
sweater
shit together.
pupples, and then it's chesticles and sweater
Sweater
puppies. Like,
puppies.
yeah.
Thank you. Fucking who is this person? The redacted. Fucking get your shit together, dude. This was immediately a little uncomfortable, especially given Fighter's track record. Fighter was someone who tended to gravitate towards similar characters. Think Lady
Lady
D from Resident
D.
Evil 8,
Yeah.
except that Felina lacked any sort of backstory or personality. The whole cannibal thing never even came up. Instead, it was just woman with big breasts, smothering enemies with them, or trying to get an extra AC by holding a shield between them, until the bit went on too far and we tried to tell Fighter to tone it down a bit. Then we all found it really uncomfortable and just a smidge misogynistic. However, when we told them that we didn't like how they kept alluding to Felina's chest, Fire simply told us, "Okay, I'll just make a new character then." Rather than just apologizing and keeping Felina without the uncomfortable jokes, they just immediately lost interest in playing as her, their first female character by the way.
Wow,
And,
who would could have guessed?
I know, and was ready to drop her the moment they weren't allowed to make these jokes about her body.
I mean,
Currently, they have kept with Felina, but they have lost any and all interest in the game. They never engage with anything that is going on unless it's to sneak in another uncomfortable joke. And otherwise, they just play other games and sometimes even have their dice rolled for them by other players because they're just so distant. Despite our attempts to find alternative and ensure they actually want to play D&D. Any thoughts on this whole debacle? Kick them out. It's easy. They don't even want to be there. They're not even paying attention. They
I
don't
mean, they
know how
don't
to
really want
play
to play the
fucking
game. Like, that's the
game.
thing. They want to probably be there because they're
No,
desperately
they don't
wanting
get to. They don't
friends.
deserve to be there.
I agree. I agree. They should not be there because the whole point of this is to do this activity, as we were saying before. Like, this is not okay or conducive to what you are, what the agreed upon activity was. This isn't what this is supposed to be. And it's like, I don't know why. Like, especially again, it's clear he's just exceedingly immature at best, if not kind of just a closeted, maybe not even closeted, just an outright douche at worst. Like, again, just you've already conveyed to him that, hey, we feel this way, uncomfortable or whatever about you making these jokes about this character. Like, this is like, and he was just like, okay, I'll just make a new character then. And it's like, he clearly made this character for that reason. Like, again, do you really think that this guy who has made all these, like, has any capacity to make a more nuanced or interesting character? I'm gonna be honest with you. If anybody brings somebody whose middle, last, or first name is Cannibal, I'm not gonna do that. I'm sorry. Like, that's, I'm not gonna. I would not want to play with that person or allow that person any game that I'm running. Like, that just doesn't, like, because again, how are you gonna have a name like that and it not be somehow, connected to your personal activities or whatever? Like, unless you're like, again, like a lizard folk, right? Lizard folk are known to do that. You're a more maybe monstrous race of some sort, maybe even orcs or goblins kind of do that shit too. Like, maybe then I would understand a bit more, but I would also be like, you can't just do that willy-nilly. Like, you actually have to have a reason, and you actually have to be able to also be told, hey, stop doing that. Like, you can't just, like, I understand where it's coming from, and if OP was right and this guy actually did have an ounce of capacity to make him a more nuanced subtextual character, then maybe. I don't think a person who had that capacity would literally name their character straight up cannibal. Like, that's it, or rather cat cannibal cat. Like, and then of course after that point he's just like, yeah, no, she has huge boobs, and it's just like, okay, all right, just goodness, trying to fill his personal fantasies here. You know what? I get it. There are certain games for that. There are games for that, and if you want to do that, go find one of those games. Don't just try to insert that shit here. As many people as play this game, as popular as this has become, as this hobby has become, I don't understand why people feel the desire or the need to try to include other people who did not consent to it into their, like, shitty, either immature or just downright like nasty personal fantasy shit.
It's really weird, yeah.
Because you could easily, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say easy, I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like it is absolutely like I'm sure there are plenty of places and plenty of groups, games, and tables that would absolutely be down for this. And to be fair,
Probably.
I guess even OP does say like their group is kind of more loosey goosey and kind of more chaos and jokes and just kind of whatever. So I guess maybe he felt like this would make sense because he thinks it's funny. So I guess maybe he was thinking that's just like, yeah, no, this is just funny humor, haha, that we do here. So I guess maybe in that vein, maybe we can kind of give him some credit or some leeway there. But honestly, yeah, I just don't understand why.
Still super weird though.
Yeah, I don't know why you still have him. Kick him out. Let him go. Yeah, the top comment down here too is just like, well, the dude exhibits almost all the traits of a bad/toxic player. Doesn't know the rules after a year. Jesus. Doesn't pay attention during the game. Is a murder hobo and builds problematic characters for fun. Like, if even after bringing this stuff to his attention, he still acts like this, I'd say he is a lost cause because you're the new guy. Because you're the new guy, I'd first talk to the GM and tell him, look, I really want to play in your game, but this guy is sucking all the fun out of it. Unless things change, I'll wait till you run a game without this particular player. If the GM and other players just shrug and do nothing, that tells you that this isn't the group/game for you, and there's no shame in leaving a group that you're not enjoying. Happens all the time.
Yeah, honestly.
Boom. That is a beautifully put, well written. Like, thank you for this commenter here. I could not have put it better myself, I'd say. Like, just let it go. Yeah, try to talk to the GM and kind of inform him what's up. Ask the other players, just like, hey, does anybody else feel kind of, whatever about this? Because I thought from what OP put, it seemed like he wasn't the only one who felt kind of awkward about his jokes about his female character or whatever. Like, so because they use we, so I assume they're not the only one. So if that's the case, it's like, clearly you're not the only one feeling that way. So maybe have a consensus, have a vote, see what happens. But with that, I think that's probably all we have for this one. Let's move on to the next one for the day. This story is titled, It's the DM's World, and we just kinda live in it. Warning, this one is a bit long. So, our story begins at the end of a game of Curse of Strahd that I was DMing. The campaign had lasted for almost a year, but with victory found in Barovia, our table found ourselves without a campaign to play. One of the players volunteered to run a homebrew game for anyone that did want to still play, and two of us agreed to participate. Session 0 comes around, and we have our group. The GM, the former player and new GM of this campaign. Roy, playing a Forge Cleric and the only other player, and myself playing an Inquisitive Rogue. It's admittedly a small group, but GM assures us that although the campaign will be difficult, it won't be impossible. Roy and myself are excited to get started, as GM came into Session 0 with a stack of lovingly hand-drawn maps detailing the expanses of his world and let us decide what our goal would be. We discussed matters and decided that we wanted to play a long-term search and rescue game to find the lost, and presumably kidnapped, king of a foreign nation, with Roy being the king's son and myself being a retired knight captain and former friend of the king. DM said this was all good, and so we made our sheets and prepared for the game, utterly oblivious to the nightmare we were about to embark on. We arrive via a ship at an empty port in the nation of Durendal, and start our trek east to the elven city situated in the nearby forest. Upon entry, we are narrated that thick vines grow all through the woods with red thorns a foot long each, and that touching one will instantly turn you to stone. Okay, that seems a little bit extreme. We, of course, take measures to avoid the thorns until we are suddenly surrounded by a wall of thorns that disappeared up into the treetops. We asked GM to clarify, and he repeated that we are simply suddenly surrounded and can't climb out without risking turning to stone. It's at this moment an elf woman appears in a hole in the vines and demands our names. We, of course, give them and are escorted inside the city where she reveals she is the queen of all elf kind. The first NPC we meet, mind you. She leads us to a building crafted from an ancient knotted tree, and after leading us to our rooms, tells us we've been left gifts. Interesting. An extremely strange statement, given how we just met this woman and walks right here. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like, that seems rather coincidental. Okay. We examine the gifts and were given a long sword that counted as a simple weapon and a royal poisoner's kit, an item the GM told us explicitly out of character would be the most vital piece of equipment we will use on this journey, as the thorns outside the city were only the beginning of the vile poisons in the land. Spoiler, it will never be used again. Also, a poisoner's kit is for poisoning, not for curing poisons. Is he saying like you can take poisons and then use these poisons because you're going to take all kinds of really horrible, terrible poisons? I don't know. Either way, I guess it doesn't matter because they never use it again anyway. We awoke the next day to the beautiful scenes of the Elven City, being blocked by the bare ass of a man perched on a branch outside our window taking a shit while grinning at us. This man was Periwinkle and was supposed to act as our guide to the Dwarven city to the north. But the GM actually just used him as an excuse to make juvenile and obnoxious humor, yelling and making fart noises constantly, and even going so far as to masturbate in the corner of a room once in full view of the party. What is going on with these OP, or not OP, but with these stories today? Just so much, we're just going a raunchy party or potty humor today, I guess. All right. I guess that's our theme for the day, class. Hope you're having fun. We leave the Elven City and head north, following an established trade route before encountering a lookout tower with a general store situated beneath it. We asked the store owner for info on the area, and he explained that the trade routes are empty and supplies scarce due to a nest of giant fire ants that took up residence underground. Pushing back the dwarves and attacking caravans as well, we offered to try and stop the ants, given how this was session 4 and we had not rolled a single dice so far, so we were absolutely chomping at the bit for some action. The shopkeeper offers assistance in the form of goods, an elven chain shirt for me and a full set of adamantine plate for the cleric, much to our utter and complete shock as we were only level 3. That's a lot. That's a lot. And they're not rolling a single die roll up to this. I hate that. We had a story about that, I think, before too, where it's just like, it's just you're just narrating a book. You're just narrating in a book right now.
You should write a fan fiction.
He did. This is it. He's just narrating his fan fiction for 2 people who thought they were going to actually be participating and playing a game. We are guided to a tunnel where the ants venture from and then head inside. A little strange way he worded that. Readying ourselves for combat. And combat we did receive. Kinda. I attempt to set up a series of traps using string, wire, oil, and fire flasks. But when combat finally began, the GM said the ants were unusually intelligent and stepped over the traps harmlessly and beelined to us. We rolled initiative, and their first attack puts me under half health. I realized that with so many giant ants pouring out and our trap removed, we aren't winning this and we're forced to retreat. The GM informs us that we were supposed to beat the ants to level up, but since we did not, we will stay at level 3. We're a bit annoyed, but we got unreasonably high tier armor anyway, and the shopkeep just let us keep it, so we moved on. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that whole thing of trying to almost hold levels hostage or whatever in order to provoke your players to do something you want them to do. That's never a good look. That's never a great look right there. We make it to the next city. Well, a walled military camp they called a city, and got our first major clue to the king's whereabouts. A wizard who was the embodied stoner archetype that lived in the area knew of an even more powerful wizard last seen in the Dwarven Kingdom that may know the whereabouts of the king. But to reach the king, we needed to access the Dwarven city through the same tunnels the ants inhabit. Oh, he wants him to go back to the goddamn ants. He's just gonna keep forcing him to go to the ants. He's just like, nope, this is what I want. I want an ant fight. We're doing the ant This okay. So of course we leave, leaving our guide behind and make our way to the heart of the anthill. I knew we were still certainly underleveled for it, but it was obviously where the GM wanted us to go. So we started the trek. Multiple times during this trek, we'd be attacked by more giant bugs that were also far over our level, who would attack us, down us, and then be gone by the time we returned to consciousness. It got tiresome fast. What? Yeah, again, I would like to add, like, what is the point? What is the intention here? We made camp atop a hill with a vantage point, and in the middle of the night, the alarm spell I had cast went off. We can see from inside our tent that we are surrounded on all sides by devils who are talking loudly to each other. Roy could understand Inferno, so he translated that they were here to kidnap us and take them to their boss. We got to thinking of a plan to escape because we knew if bugs were killing us, devils would be unbeatable. I mean, yeah, where did this even come from? We had no time to react as the devils tear into the tent as we discuss strategy out of character, throwing us into combat. We land no hits, and we are both down but maintain consciousness to see the devils are over us. The GM's stoner wizard pops into existence by our heads and then notices the devils, which he dispatches instantly by blowing a dank cloud at them, which removes them from existence. So I guess you could say he cast banishment on them and just flavored it like he blew a cloud at them, I guess. The wizard restores us to full health and says he brings news that he has a new lead on the king's location. We point out we need to eliminate the ants anyway, to which the wizard says he forgot we had to do that, crosses his eyes, wiggles his fingers, and the entire anthill disappears. My brain hurts. My brain hurts. Obviously, Roy and myself are flabbergasted. I can't imagine why. We ask why the hell he didn't just do this long ago when the trade routes were shut down. To which he laughs and says, yeah, he was too lazy to do it then. We are obviously getting exasperated with the entire situation. But the wizard then said we needed to search the Underdark for the king. Before we could reply, he exhales another cloud, and we open our eyes in a collapsed building somewhere underground. As soon as we step outside the building, we are ambushed by drow women riding spiders who kidnap us and take us to the Queen Grand Priestess. The QGP explains that when men are below slave status in this land, but a rebellion has, or that men are below slave status in this land, excuse me, but a rebellion has risen up and they have kidnapped her 3 daughters, so she wants us to go rescue them. We told her no, frustrated with our decisions having no impact, but we're told we had no choice in the matter, and we are wrapped in webbing and wake up again in another crumbling building. It's like that. I forget what show this was, but I remember it vividly. It's like this character is just being consistently just knocked out, just from behind with like a baton or something or whatever. He like gets knocked out, wakes up somewhere else, like sees, oh, it's like a secret person or whatever they have to talk to in a location they don't know about, and just like, okay, I have a secret mission for you to go, and this dude's like, fine, I guess. And he's just like, of course, we're going to have to knock you out again to and he's like, yeah. And every time he has to meet with this contact, he always has to be knocked out and then wakes up and then gets knocked out again to then be removed. It's like, what? Like, I hate it. It's like, it's clearly just like, oh yeah, we're just going to have the characters be able to magically move quickly to where they need to be for the convenience of the story. It's just like, I couldn't, man. I mean, I would probably this would just be fucking hilarious to me. Like, I would be frustrated and aggravated, I think, for sure. But I would also just be like, this is so freaking ridiculous. It's just damn funny at this point.
It's just silly.
Okay. We immediately find the rebels, who we find are slaves rising up against the queen. And they tell us where the princesses are, as well as that they were actually kidnapped by a devil. Cool. Arriving at the building where we were told the princesses were, We enter, and of course, the princesses are in plain view, as is a 15-foot tall devil. Cheers to that. The devil turns his attention to us and inquires why we're here. Roy declares we want the princesses for the Drow Queen. The devil laughs at us and says no, unless we make a delivery for him. He wants us to deliver a supreme ring of curse removal to a man out in the Dwarven Kingdom. Oh my god.
My favorite thing is just why. Even if you're writing a shitty fan fiction, your story doesn't even make sense. He's just going, hey, can you do this thing for
giving him
me?
the runaround. He's literally just like, hey, go here. Actually, I take it back. Go here. Oh, wait, never mind. Go here. I knock you out. I take you here. Hey, you know what you need to do in order to do the thing that we brought you here to do? You need to go back to the other place that you needed to go to before, but we're forced to come here instead. And you know what? The next part, oh God, next time I'm so happy. Roy loses his shit. He draws his sword, points it at the devil, and makes an in real life inspirational speech about his refusal to be a puppet to the whims of fate, as well as an oath he'd slay the devil, even if it cost his life that lasts for a couple of minutes. Man put his all into it, and I was genuinely taken aback by his sincere performance. Unfortunately, GM was not as impressed, as when he stopped, the GM said, "That was a cool speech, but I magicked it onto your finger while you were yapping." Roy says, "I remove it. You can't. It's stuck on and will only remove itself when you find the man to deliver it to. Also, the queen can have her worthless kids back." And he snaps his fingers, presumably returning the princesses back to the queen, and disappears himself. Roy is beside himself, as you should be, Roy. Roy, I'm so sorry that we were not there to hear your incredible speech. Honestly, I cannot help but imagine, like, it was truly fueled with true righteous indignation, I think, at the fury of this of the ridiculousness happening to you right now. You deserve so much better, Roy. You too, OP, but god damn it. Roy is beside himself, as he should be. Clearly at the point he looked like he'd cry at any second. We were tired and completely sick of being tossed around his story with no impact, everyone ignoring us, and having no true effect on anything. We didn't want to say anything hurtful to the GM because he was our mutual longtime friend. So we agreed to just grit our teeth until he finished his tale. I mean,
stop.
Dude, I understand. I get it. He's your friend, but bro, if he's really your friend, you should be honest with him about what's going on. You don't have to be a dick about it. You don't have to be mean, but be honest. Tell him it's bad. It's really bad. And you can, and I get, you know what, to be fair, I get it. You guys were already kind of at that point. Like you've already been pushed super far that at that point, you know what? I think maybe your decision was right. And that you may not have actually been able to talk to him in like a more reasonable, like constructive, healthy manner. Like the only way you maybe really would have been able to confront this situation is kind of just by going off, because clearly if Roy is close to near tears of just rage and frustration, and OP probably is kind of pretty close with him, it's like it'll be hard to have a real conversation, because it's, I mean, the problem is he's doing you dirty. He is messing with you guys dirty. It's not good at he is clearly just using you guys for his own personal entertainment, and it's really fucked up, bro. I am really sorry that this is so sad. I'm feeling so sad for these guys, because they are really trying, bro. Next session. Why? No, in the session, and then talk to him about it. I take it back. Not during it, but after this. Come on, okay. We find a hole where the devil stood. This hole led to a tunnel that took us, obviously, directly to the chambers of the Dwarf Queen. Because at this point, why the hell wouldn't it? Well, we tell the queen what our goal was. Of course, finding the king. And she said she knows nothing of that, but knows someone who might. A legendary, powerful wizard who was currently locked away because he was under the effect of a potent curse. Roy and I immediately realized that it's likely both the wizard spoken of by the dank wizard and the devil's recipient for the ring. We suppress annoyed sighs and ask to see him. I'm so sorry I'm laughing, OP. I know you guys felt such pain, but I can't. My mind is also breaking from this, and I feel like the only way I can cope is by laughing at just the ridiculousness of this whole thing. She walks us to a sealed chamber where we are described a man that's been locked away in countless chains with arcane runes etched onto them. And as DM describes the scene, my soul leaves my body. Taking a step back to prior to this game starting, our group was playing Curse of Strahd with myself as the GM and the current GM as a player. During this game, the GM was playing a drow wizard who accepted all the dark gifts of the Amber Temple at once, granting him, excuse me.
I know about that.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. Granting him great power, but cursing him in a myriad of disgusting ways. Oh no. Oh no. Sam.
Self-insert.
Sam, no, no. Please,
Yeah,
please
no. Come on.
No.
Continue.
Wait. No,
Wait. Don't forget. I made you read this because I already read this already.
His PC was turned evil, and the game ended with him betraying the party and becoming Lord of Barovia. So imagine my surprise when the man standing in front of us in this new campaign is none other than that same drow wizard.
That's right.
I can feel the storm approaching, provoking, and I'm sure that Roy could as well. The ring falls off of Roy's finger,
panic attack.
and he offers it up to the bound wizard, and at once all of his hindering curses flash away, obviously leaving the beneficial boons they came with fully intact, because of course, and he is freed from his bindings. Now, he is, of course, eternally grateful and insists on staying with us to the conclusion of our journey. Despite our own insistence that a mage as powerful as he most definitely had better things to do, we, however, were not so lucky. The DM NPC says he knows where the king is being held and will take us there, prompting another teleportation. Bro, at this point, I feel like their insides are going to become outsides with all the constant random. They should have brain damage from all the concussions and knockouts that they've had. Like, this is just... This time to a city that could be described as Agrabah. We had no clue where we were on this map this time, but we also didn't care, so we went with it. DM NPC says the king is held in the local prison, but we need to sneak in. Finally, I think, something my character is inherently good at. I tell the GM I want to wander the bazaar inconspicuously to listen in on conversations to gather further intel, to which I'm told I am promptly seized by the city guards. Nigga, what? He's a rogue! Do it like Assassin's Creed style. If there's like a ton of people, how can anybody possibly recognize when someone's eavesdropping? In fact, people could just be inadvertently eavesdropping because they're close enough to a conversation. They're not even trying to listen in. They just hear it because they're talking close together. What? Okay. I'm floored as I demand to know why I was just suddenly arrested when all I did was walk a public street, to which the GM says matter-of-factly, the people in this city have a distinct cultural attire that you aren't wearing, and it marks you as an outsider. I tried to protest that this information wasn't provided to us, but he simply narrated me getting dragged to a jailhouse and tossed in a cell. If you've been paying attention, I'm sure you can guess who his cellmate was. Say it with me, boys and girls. It's the king! That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the king. Now, out of character, I have just about hit my limit, as never in my many years of playing D&D have I ever encountered such a railroaded game before or since, I would hope. But as soon as I identify the king, the DMPC teleports in along with Roy, leaving me questions why the DMPC didn't just teleport us to the king if that was always in his power. I point out that we need to sneak him out of the city, to which the DMPC simply teleports the whole party outside the city walls and onto a nearby roadway. Roy audibly groans, but the GM either ignores it or didn't catch it, and instead narrates a horse-drawn carriage coming down the road. And I suggest we flag them down for a ride to the nearest port, and the GM says the sigil on the side is familiar, because it was the royal seal for our native kingdom. I don't...
Oh, that's so good, though.
I don't understand, like, why the two of them are still putting up with this. Like, he says he's just about at his limit, but I'm like, how are you just about at your limit? You guys have done nothing. You have rolled no dice up to this point. You have made no true decisions of any kind, really, up to this point. You have done nothing but watch this dude literally yank your chain, literally yank you by the chain, like the collar, just like swinging you around hither and thither everywhere.
Ooh.
For nothing.
Thither.
I know, I love those words. Hither and thither is great. It's like, what? How can you call this man or this boy, this person, your friend? How is this a friend to you? Literally, Roy groans audibly, and you say that the GM either just outright purposefully ignores it or somehow doesn't catch it because he's got his head shoved so far up his own anus that he literally can only hear his own bullshit. Like, what are we doing? What do you do? What I'm starting to lose some of my ability to empathize or sympathize again with this OP, because it's like, where's the line? The line has been crossed multitude of times already. And you're still like, you know what? We should try to wave down that carriage. No! Just have the DMPC teleport you back home. Campaign done. You're finished. It's done. Because you know he can. Why are you still trying to do this? And I know why. Because you do kind of want to play. You do kind of still want to try to be like, hey, this is something we can do, right? This is still something that can happen. This is still something that can be salvageable in some way, shape, or form at the end. It's not. Okay. Roy and myself are shocked, to say the least, as nobody from our home kingdom should have been in Durandal. But the carriage stops and the doors swing open, revealing Roy's character's older brother, who was neither in his backstory nor ever been mentioned before up until this point. This older brother greets us and invites us into the carriage, where he explains that it was him that orchestrated the capture of the king, and he simply couldn't allow any of us to return to our home because he was the rightful king now. He then gets ejected from the carriage just before the carriage effing explodes. We all take tremendous damage, and the king is in critical condition. Roy tries to heal him, but GM says he's too far gone. The king then names me the rightful heir to the throne. I refuse, insisting Roy is both his son and has proven his valor and so should be the rightful heir. As I'm talking, the king shoves another magic ring onto my character's hand, saying it marks the true king and can't be removed unless by powerful magic.
Yep.
And then he died.
Yeah. This is really good.
Pissed. Clearly, I'm pissed. Obviously, the GM is beaming like he has personally subverted every literary expectation and was the next Tolkien given flesh. This was the last session we played. As both Roy and I explained, we had no interest in playing anymore, especially since outside of combat, we rolled maybe 3 checks total. However, the game apparently didn't effing end. It didn't end.
This is what I was waiting for.
As even without players, the GM continued playing by himself.
Ah, beautiful.
I would update us occasionally on how the DMVC raised a dead god, married the elf queen,
This is what I was waiting
slayed
for.
the devil king, and brought peace to the nation.
It's beautiful. Oh, how wonderful it is.
Good for him, I guess, you know?
No, I saw that when I was reading it, and I was like, Adam's gonna have a fucking aneurysm.
The game only lasted about 8 sessions or so. But the mental trauma will scar me for eternity. We no longer speak to him for unrelated reasons, and hopefully he has moved on to just writing fanfic, as it was clearly his intention all along. TLDR, DM runs campaign, becomes Railroad Tycoon, and or I think he might want to be Tyrant, Railroad Tyrant. I guess Tycoon maybe works too, and won't even let players roll dice. End post. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Ah. I think that broke me. That legitimately broke me.
Good.
Oh my god. I can't believe they stayed with it as long as they. I don't. Let's. Okay. Top comment down below says, seems like the classic case of adore my fanfic and be engaged because I'm describing something that looks super cool in my head. First time I heard a GM continue to play on his own, though. It's unclear if he was actually playing the game by himself or just coming up with events in his head as time went on for his perceived epilogue. But I agree. First and only time a GM was under the impression the game continued without players. Well, because it started without players. You guys were never players to begin with. That's what you don't understand, OP. He never considered you player. You were never players. You were just audiences. You were spectators to what was happening. You were simple tools for him to use as I wouldn't even say convenient or effective means of whatever, because he had no idea. I mean, he should know. I think about it, he should have some idea what D&D is, because he literally played in a Curse of Strahd campaign for like over a year or something. Let's move on to the next one, please. Sammy, can you please just take the next one,
Sure.
please? I need to rest. I need to rest for a second, I think.
All right, we have one PC was terrible from the beginning. Wait, no.
That might be that might be my favorite story that we've
What
ever
was?
read on the channel up to this point.
Uh-oh, I might have deleted the third one. Which is the third one?
One PC was terrible from the beginning of the campaign to the point where he was murdered by my character because she had more than one
Oh,
good reason to
okay.
hate him.
Oh yeah, wonderfully well-written title. I am here to share my story of a horrible PC that ruined the experience of a great campaign for all the other
That's
players.
fine.
So in general, we were all relatively
That's
new to
fine.
TTRPGs. In our early 20s at university when this happened, it was about 8 years ago. I am from Germany, so we were playing the Dark Eye. Our GM has the most experienced player, but it was his first time GMing. Our party consisted of a ranger, Geralt, a mage, Nightingale, a gladiator, Maximus, a thief, Irene, me, a priest, Rose, and another Viking fighter, Sven, the problem. So our GM arranged for all of us to join the party. For different reasons, we found ourselves in a small village. Irene and Geralt knew each other and were on the run from the authorities. We picked up Nightingale when he told a villager that his magic was not black and evil, which it was, but that's not the point. So the three of us went to a tavern. There we meet Sven, who had a temporary job as a waiter and helpmate because he broke one of the innkeeper's expensive tankards and couldn't pay for it. So the GM asked this player to describe himself, and this was awkward at best. He described himself as a young, muscular Viking standing naked in a pool of boar's blood. The blood came from a boar he was butchering in the backyard of the tavern. GM, Geralt, Nightingale, and I were just like, okay. Our PCs ignored the muscular naked guy and went back inside for a drink after that experience. The GM asked Sven what he was going to do after he had finished his butchering. He said he would go inside, still naked and bloody, and do his job. The GM finally asked why he was naked. Sven replied that the GM had said he had no money to pay for the tankard, so obviously he had no money for clothes or weapons or anything like that. It was strange because the game gives you some sort of starting equipment.
You
Anyway,
always
my
have
thief.
starting equipment.
Yeah.
For
Anyway, my
every
thief.
class.
Yeah. Unless you're playing a very specific
This
campaign where you
isn't look. This isn't Dark Souls where you're playing like the wretched or the squalid. Okay, where you literally have nothing but a loincloth and a club. All right, like that's
But
not
why
how
not?
this works.
What if I want to?
Please don't continue. Please go ahead.
Okay. Um, let's see. Oh, okay. You had no money for clothes or weapons or anything. It was strange because the game gives you some sort of starting equipment. Anyway, my thief Irene went off to steal some trousers from a clothesline, and the innkeeper didn't seem too keen on keeping the guy. He was our problem now. Then a bearded old wonderful. Then a bearded old man approached us and sent us off to a nearby swamp to collect some rare plants or something. He told us to be careful because the nature in this place had gone mad. We set off on our first adventure to find Maximus and Rose in trouble, attacked by some creatures. We helped them, and the party was finally complete. Sven continued to be awkward, collecting some leeches from the swamp, squeezing them, and covering himself with this paste. He insisted it would protect him from the mosquitoes. It didn't, and it was just disgusting. We spent our first night in a hut we found in the swamp. I was on night watch and heard a noise outside, so I woke Geralt, the ranger, and climbed onto the roof of the hut to investigate. A dozen of these mad creatures were outside the hut, circling it. There was no way we could fight our way out, as we'd had trouble fighting the first four while helping Maximus and Rose, and we'd all been injured in the process. We had to be as quiet as possible and pray to the gods that the old door would hold. The creatures didn't seem to like sunlight, so we'll just have to wait until dawn. Well, until Sven woke up. He declared that it would be wimpy to stay hidden, so he kicked the door, smashing it to pieces, and ran out. He had no weapon because he refused to take his starting equipment, remember? So we couldn't hide anymore and were forced to fight. This could have easily been a TPK, but our GM sent an NPC to help us. We confronted Sven, but he just shrugged his shoulders and told us that this was the way of his culture. We explained that if he wanted to fight, he didn't have to kick down the door and leave the rest of us defenseless. There have been a number of times where he has done this sort of thing. Each time he puts the party in danger. My thief never spoke to him more than she had to, and the rest of the party became more and more distant. Eventually, they would have kicked him out, but at that point of the campaign, the campaign had forged them together through fate. Ugh. We all got some special. I know we all got some special abilities, and everyone's abilities would be needed to fight the BBEG in the end. And it was never that bad. The party couldn't. It was never. What? It was never so bad that the party couldn't.
And it was
handle
never that bad. The party couldn't handle it.
Yeah, it was just.
It was definitely the way she phrased it wasn't quite right, but it was basically like it was never bad enough. The party couldn't handle it, but
yeah. Let's see. But it did burn some of our resources. We lost some valuable NPCs that could have fought alongside us, and it interfered with our character arcs. And he metagames all the time.
I would have.
He insisted of knowing things about our characters that Sven just wouldn't have known, like that Irene was a thief. She kept it as secret as possible. Only Geralt knew it for a long time. She said that she was a merchant, an adventurer, a person who could talk and make good deals. She never stole anything for her group, nor from normal villagers or poor townspeople, besides those fucking trousers. Which she did because of him, but he would treat her like a thief, which in his Viking culture were the lowest of the low, outcasts of society, and that's why Irene's opinion doesn't count as much as that of the honorable members of the party. There are so many more stories I could tell you that would fit in here. The low point came late in the campaign. We were hunted by the Wild Hunt. So they just stole this from. Is the Wild Hunt? Is this just from The Witcher?
Yeah, they're basically just doing The Witcher from the sounds of it, or at least the Wild Hunt clearly is, as well as the dude literally being, I guess, Geralt. Like I don't. You could just
It
be a
doesn't.
witcher, I guess, if he's a blood hunter.
It doesn't really fucking matter. There are demons from the realm of harsh, deadly winters and cruel hunts, and a lot of them. All types from low to high level demons. We managed to find a cave in the mountains with a very small entrance after long days of consistent running through the forest. We were exhausted. Oh, so am I. Fuck. So Sven and Irene are on night watch together. We drew straws. We heard something outside, and Sven insisted that Irene should investigate because she's good at sneaking and shady things. Okay, but he should wake the others just in case. And they had this agreement. So Irene went out, found some demons on the wild hunt. Surprise, surprise. But there weren't that many. Nothing we couldn't handle if we had to. One not so good roll of the dice later, and they spotted Irene. She ran back to our cave, only to find that Sven had blocked the entrance with his large shield and was standing behind it, pressing it against the entrance, and hadn't woken the others yet. She was desperate to get back into the cave, as she wouldn't stand a chance against those demons alone, but Sven decided to sacrifice her to save the others, quote unquote. What the fuck? She fought desperately alone outside, screaming for help. Eventually, she was torn to pieces, on the verge of permadeath, when the rest of the party was finally able to come to her rescue because Sven had blocked the entrance. Saving Irene's life wasted a ton of healing potions and spells, resources we desperately needed because we couldn't resupply at that time.
I don't know if saying wasted is maybe the right turn of phrase,
Well,
but
like this didn't have to happen, basically.
no, I
They,
agree. Well, I also don't like if she was there, why couldn't she just scream into the freaking cave? Her voice would echo in there. Like, and Sven, like, are you telling me Sven was literally big enough with a shield big enough to block a full entrance to a cave, even if it was like a tiny crevice? It's not like I don't think he'd be able to perfectly airtight seal the freaking entrance. What is the GM doing? What is the GM doing here? I don't understand why this was even a thing. This shouldn't have even been a thing.
no,
Sorry, continue.
you're all good. At that point,
The group was really angry with Sven.
yeah. The group was really angry with Sven and confronted him, but he insisted that he had done it to protect the rest of the group. They lost the last bit of trust they had in him. We'd long
Out of character.
yeah,
Yeah.
out of character talk about how shitty this was, but Spencer didn't realize that his behavior was shit. So this time it was enough. While we were having our first peaceful rest after this whole constant being hunted thing, Irene sneaked up on the sleeping Sven. He was allowed to roll the dice if he could spot Irene, but the dice weren't in his favor. She stabbed him right through the heart, killing him. His ability would go through another hero we had to find later, but she didn't care anymore. Sven's player got really angry. Why would Irene kill a friend? A friend, sorry? He complained, we argued. He insisted that the GM should not let that count and reverse his death. No. The GM didn't like my decision either, but he wanted to go with it. The party doesn't investigate Sven's death too much, as their enemies are very powerful at this point in the campaign. Every PC has their personal enemies too. We talked a lot with Sven's player, really a lot, and things would get a bit better after those conversations, and then get worse again, culminating in some shit that got us into unnecessary danger or trouble. He left the game after Sven's death, and we managed to finish the campaign without him. A nice NPC guy's ability, which Irene cared about much more than the naked Viking guy. Oh,
Jesus, I was having some flashbacks there, bro. Goddamn, like that shit is, dude. Just, I love it. I love it. Right at the end, too. Right at the end, dude literally is trying to be like, dude's literally. He's literally trying to be like, oh, why would Irene kill a friend? What? How? That's completely out of character. How could she do that? Bitch, you literally left her to die. You forced her, in fact, to die by herself.
yeah.
You didn't go help her. You didn't wake the rest of them up to go and help her. You are not her friend. In fact, you literally got her killed, essentially, almost. She has every right to take you the F out at that point. And he's going to say, like you weren't going to let the GM necessarily retcon the shit that was going to happen to her. And I'm like, GM. The dude's like, no, the GM didn't like OP's decision either, but he wants to go with it. So, did you not like what Sven did either, but you still wanted to go with that? What kind of games
I don't fucking know.
Are you having fun? Is this actually fun for people? GM, do you really, can you not see? Are you not able to see and witness the expressions, the body language, the vocal tone and range of your players to the shenanigans and decisions of this single player? In fact, why don't you put yourself in the player's shoes? If that player did that to you, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, that's another thing. Which is kind of crazy to me.
I don't understand people like this. Like I don't understand people who, again, they say shit, they do shit, and then when you call them out on it, when you already talk to them, you talk to the player a lot, you talk to the person a lot, and it's just they're completely incapable of being able to understand, again, any side except for their own personal justification for what they did. Like, you're like, what? You realize there's more than just you in this situation, right? Like, how can you say you left her to die? You did nothing to help her. In fact, you actively hindered her. And you're going to say that you're still a friend. You also said that he doesn't trust. You don't trust her. You look down on her. You disrespect her. Like, how you have shown no signs of friendship at all by your actions and words. So this is what I'm saying. Like I don't understand in games like this where it's like, if a dude is being like deliberately sabotaging to the party, kick him out. Kick that character, if not the player, out of the party. Take out their kill their character. Take them out. If they are being that way with your characters, and you're like, why wouldn't your characters do that back to them then? They are not giving them the only reason that it's ironically too is that if you do anything else, you would be metagaming. If you literally, if your characters behaved in any way differently, you would be metagaming because they don't have an actual in-game reason to keep this person around anymore.
No,
they don't. They have every reason to get rid of them in whatever way they can. Maybe they don't have to kill them, not necessarily, but they absolutely kick them out. They cannot come with anymore. You cannot come with. Leave. This oh my goodness, this is just I hate these people. I hate these people so much. These types of people are just the worst. I mean, it seems, again, I'll say it before, like, not a so-called, registered therapist by any means, but I feel like this is a pretty textbook signifier of narcissism here to some extent. Like, that is some severely narcissistic behavior from what I am aware of. Like, I think we literally actually had we did a previous video of a dude who was like this too, actually. Like that dad who played in his daughter's game and kept doing all like just the worst things and then was surprised when bad things happened to him because he just kept doing all of the worst shit. Like,
I remember that.
I'll never understand people like this, man. I'll never understand people like this. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. Last one for the day, y'all. My Angry GM by Cool Setting 6988. So to start, my GM did not approve of a lot of things. God damn it. Anything that wasn't a big hardcover book, he did not like. And he did not like other things like GM screens, and he didn't like D&D books that wasn't mainline rule books. So just about anything that wasn't the core rule books. It's like, okay, I mean, I feel like that might be a little bit extreme, a bit strict, but if he wants to play with the core rule books and such, I mean, or at least, I guess it would depend on what he considers the main line. Because, like, would he consider, like, Xanathar or Tasha's to be mainline? Because I would say that those are mainline. Like they're not just, you know, the player's handbook, the you know, Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual, but they are still like they're core books, they're core rule books for all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Another thing about my GM was that he would always have to be right about things. Oh no. Like one time we were playing and I was a wizard and my friend was an artificer. Now, wizards are low when it comes to HP, and my friend asked why I didn't have a lot of HP. And I said to my friend, I have a D6 for a hit dice. I'm going to have lower than the rest of the party because of that. And the GM just said, no, you're wrong, with no further explanation on why I was wrong. Just, he was right, and I was wrong. Ooh, that is. Now, one time I DM'd and I decided for my setup, I was going to use a DM screen. Now, regular GM was first to show up, and we sat there talking, and he never said anything about the screen at all. Now, when everyone else showed up, we start playing, and we get 30 minutes in, and the party is at a tavern. Now, the GM, who was a cleric, and the barbarian had started a drinking contest, and GM's cleric was up first. And we decided we were going to roll constitution checks to the drinking contest. He rolls his check, and I grab my dice and begin to roll, and suddenly GM goes, no. When he realized I was going to be rolling behind the screen. Weird, he ended that as a sentence, strange. Okay, yeah. He said no when he realized I was going to be rolling behind the screen. So I tell him that is what the screen is for, and he just groaned and gave up then for the rest of the session.
Cool.
The way he writ that is, yeah, weird. And he just groaned and gave up. Then for the rest of the session went well, or then the rest of the, I think, yeah, then for the rest of the session went well, I think he was trying to say. But I guess me using the DM screen set something off with the GM, because then every time we played, he would watch all the rolls like a hawk. He would sit there, and when I would roll, he would scream out the number without giving me any time for input, like adding modifiers. Another thing my GM would almost never add modifiers on were to attacks, but then would get mad when I would add my attack modifiers and be able to hit better. Now, we had been playing a session, and we had gotten into combat with some small-time mercenaries. It got to my turn in combat, and I attack with my short sword. I roll, and as per usual, the GM screams out the number as soon as my dice lands. So the GM screams out 12, but then I go to a +6 to hit, so it's 18 to hit, and the GM angrily said, you have a +6 to hit, but then said nothing else. And there was nothing crazy about my +6. We were level 3 and didn't have these crazy modifiers. He just seemed to be angry about it for some reason. Then later, that session, our party with the accompanying of Dritz Duerden, fuck me, he's bringing in, like, God, who was traveling with us for some reason, had made our way to town. We had gotten to a stand with a fish person running it, and they had a jar around their neck with a fairy inside it that could talk, or that talked for the fish person. Now, my party decided we were going to be a bit chaotic and steal the fairy. Why? So we decided that the monk was going to stand there and distract the fisherman, and me and Dritz were going to sneak in the back. So I get to the back and enter it almost like a mini warehouse, but there are other people, so I had to sneak through. This is getting a bit difficult to read through. Now, I had taken stealth as one of my proficiencies, and I was a dex-based build, so I had high stealth. And my friend looked over and said, you have a +6 to stealth, which I didn't mind, but then the GM again, in this sort of angry voice, said, you have a +6 to stealth, to which I just said, yes. And once he just said nothing, so we end up okay. And then he just said nothing, so we end up stealing the ferry and making our way out of town. And that was the end of the session. The GM said nothing about what I was doing to make him mad. So after that session, I decided to leave there. I decided to leave. There was also some stuff outside of game that was happening, but it's not important. I never figured out why the GM was doing the things he was doing, like why he didn't trust me to roll dice. I asked the party if I did things that looked like I was cheating, and they said I wasn't doing anything like that. And they also had no idea why the GM was doing all of that. But then everyone else left the GM's group because they had similar issues to me. And I guess I'm to say, and I haven't heard about GM since. Also, plot twist for anyone scratching their head, I was Dritz for that session.
Why? Why?
Okay, this whole thing was difficult for me. Like this, I'm sorry, OP. It was really difficult to kind of get through this. Like the punctuation was kind of either nowhere to be seen or strangely placed, and the wordings, like it wasn't even necessarily typos that were the issue. It was just the structure of the words. So just as a little like maybe constructive criticism for there, like do your best to maybe try to clean it up a little bit next time. It was a bit difficult at times to articulate exactly what it was you were trying to convey at certain points. But other than that, I will say, like, yeah, like that it sounded like the GM just had some kind of stick up his ass for some reason. Like, I don't know, or maybe even something towards you personally. Maybe I don't like. Again, we don't have enough context. I don't know if you said there was shit going on outside of the game. So I mean, you say that wasn't relevant or necessary, but maybe it was. Maybe whatever was happening outside the game began to kind of color or influence the way the GM was acting towards you or something. I don't know. Because it just seemed like he had because you didn't seem to mention anything towards about anybody else. I guess I don't think. It just seemed like for some reason he just wanted to kind of knock you down as much as he could or try to get one over on you for some reason. And then he felt like you were getting one over on him because you were able to, like, you know, say things correctly. You knew the rules right. Like you had a +6 to your attack, or you knew that your wizard has a D6 instead of everything else, which is the lowest hit die. So you will have like the lowest hit points usually of any class. Like,
Yeah.
even if unless like every other class, like the next class D8 rolls like all ones or something, and you roll like all sixes. Like, if you just go by simple like middle of the road, like if you just take the average, you will always have just the lowest hit points unless you take like the tough feat or get some other kind of bonus, like, or unless maybe your constitution is like way higher than somebody else's. But historically, that's always been the case. There's a literal joke gag meme about how the wizard will just die from a D4 of anything because they have such low hit points, especially at low levels. Like,
Yeah. And normally that is 100% the case.
yeah, I don't know. It seems likely that this GM was just, I don't know. I don't know why, but it's the only thing I can really discern is that he just had something towards you personally, because unless of course, like, you want to give like some more context of like, he was also acting that way to other people, in which case he just seemed to be he just had a hostile mentality. Like, it was just him versus everyone else, it seemed. So I assume probably it would come from a sense of insecurity, feeling like maybe, you know, feeling lesser or inferior to other people, and having a constant need to try to prove otherwise, but never really succeeding, maybe. I don't know. Again, this is all just armchair psychology, I suppose, technically speaking, but that's, that would be my 2 cents, I guess, from what I witnessed here. What do you think, Sammy?
I don't think your 2 cents are wrong in that, because this is just someone who needs things to go the way that they want them to go, albeit with no one else's. I'm not a big fan of this type of DMing. It's not really conducive to actually enjoying your experience.
Like, yeah, well, it also just seems like the dude didn't have much real knowledge of the game's mechanics, because it's like,
No, not really.
literally every time if he's sitting there trying to yell out like, he rolled a 12, it's like, yeah,
All right, dude, calm down.
there's a modifier. There's a modifier for literally almost everything. Like, that you, like, almost always the roll on the dice is not going to just be the roll, the full check, like that, or whatever. Like, that's not going to be the full number. That's how the game works. That's literally, I would say, what is the thing before 101? Is there a thing before 101? Like a prologue precursor, or something, like, I don't know. Like, what is
No,
before
I
you
don't think
take
so.
something 101? Because if there isn't anything like that, that's what that is. Knowing that there's a modifier for a dice for like that, yeah, bro, that shit's just like top voted comment down here says like the guy sounds like he's had some trust issues. Like he's wary of cheating on rolls and rules or felt it should have been a more laid back, less optimized game. Can't say from hearing your side whether cheating actually hurt him in the past, but from what you said of hearing other players, it seems this much caution was not warranted at that particular time. Did your character stand out from the rest of the party, as in noticeably more effective or optimized? And all that said, he might have just been a teeny tiny bit too controlling in the end. Doesn't always prevent a GM from doing fun sessions, but this time it apparently didn't work out. I mean, like, yeah, it's kind of just like, I can understand maybe if you feel, but from what I saw, it seemed like he was playing a rogue or slash ranger. If he's playing Dritz through Erden for that session, like, or even as he said, he's a wizard. If he has a decent dex and he took proficiency in stealth, he could have a +6 to his stealth checks, to his roll. Like,
Yeah.
It's not impossible by any means at all. Like,
Nope.
Having a +6 isn't even. It's not even like it. I would say you have to have maybe like at least at level 3. I think you said they were. I think you have to have like at least what, like a 4 or sorry, an 18, I guess technically, because I think your proficiency bonus is only still +2. So it's like he'd have to have a high number in that attribute, but depending on the race he chose, like. And if he again had like if he rolled stats, if he rolled well, like that's just how that works. Like I don't know, because it also just seemed like, yeah, he didn't have any good real concept of the rules of the game at all, despite being a GM. Because him literally trying to just shoot down OP, but then not giving any actual facts or explanation of his stance, just like it seemed like he was kind of just being an immature dick. He was just like,
Yep.
no, it's not. No, it's not. No. Like, okay.
Like, dude,
Okay.
this is just weird, man. Why you act like that? I don't know.
Man.
People need to figure out
Their shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. But you know what, y'all? I do believe that that's all that we have for you today. If you guys have stuck with us this long, we thank you very much. We appreciate it immensely. Honestly, means the world to us. Be sure again to leave a like and a comment down below of your thoughts on everything happening here, what you heard, what you read, so many other ideas that you guys might have about some stories maybe you'd like us to talk about or read about. Subscribe and share the channel. Always helps us out immensely. And after that, we'll be sure to catch you guys next time when we dive back down into the archive. So long, y'all.